Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Just want to make sure we got it going. We are going. So, guys, this time we are going to talk about transmigration and reincarnation. And, these are fun topics. And, just want to reiterate this, what we're going to share is more of what we've experienced, what we've come to understand through our own introspection as well as our own interaction with our guides.
Well, yeah, and what you do is you find the ability to lay down any belief system that you have been taught, so you can do that introspection without the belief system hanging over your head, because it's what you find to be true that is important, not what someone told you to be true.
That's so key, because again, we are so always saturated with different belief systems and different philosophies. And, when people might ask you, are you this, are you that? And what if you're none of the above? And that you haven't found any particular system, any one philosophy, any one religion that does it all for you. And I think in these times, that's going to be the case for more and more people because, no one size fits all.
Absolutely not, nor is it supposed to. We're not all born to hit the same target. We're all born to have a slightly different perspective than another person, and it's a beautiful thing. And I think some might make it out to be, oh, we're here on earth, it's a scary thing, you're going to reincarnate here forever. But no, it's a natural thing. Being reborn is very natural, and it can happen in more ways than one.
Yeah, and it truly is. Let's say when we talk about reincarnation, I think most people will think of reincarnation as humans coming back as humans, right? Or maybe we can even expand a little bit and say humanoid-ish, humanoid type beings coming back as humanoid type beings. When we talk about transmigration, it's really talking about that essence, that eternal part of our consciousness, which again, we are ultimately consciousness itself. And that can be a scary realization. And it was scary for me. And it came in stages. I should reiterate that and say that some aspects of it were scary at times, and others were not at all. They were actually very, very reassuring. It is unique for each individual. And again, when Cindy and I are talking to you guys, and I know on Heart's Home, we're going to have a lot less people that would take issue because, we're not going to reach as big a audience. We're going to reach people that have hit a certain state of awakening and are open, to being a unique aspect of consciousness themselves, not having to fit into any particular form. That's beautiful. Again, what we're doing is we're mostly sharing our own experiences, which are unique to us, but some aspects of that you will find others, obviously, that have gone through these stages too. As each soul is unique, but we go through a certain progression typically. Now, some souls may skip certain aspects. Other souls might rewind and kind of stay in a particular zone that they like or that they get more out of. We're all unique, and that's really the beauty of it.
It does depend on what do you need to learn to grow. What aspect of yourself needs to be exercised, or what aspect needs to be given more information. And we do have the ability to decide these things in a certain construct and step back and say, okay, I want to do this, 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 and this, and this is what I want to experience in my growth lesson in this lifetime. So it's just, everything is about progression everything is about expansion, and everything is about learning something different from the lifetime before. So you can look at it like this, today we are preparing and living today, which is going to fall into tomorrow. And in this life, we are preparing this life, and we're going to take this information to the next life, because people will find themselves that they're really able to do something very easily. It just, rolls off their fingertips, certain aspects of them. It's like they don't struggle at all with certain things. And then other things, they might be feeling like a fish swimming upstream. But we have to look at that and decide, wow, this is affecting me. Is this something I need to look at closer in this life? And really, nobody can answer that question for you but you.
Yes, absolutely. As you see here, we have death on one side, and then we have life on the other. You could view this as the mother, the goddess, divine energy over here, and it's all about experience over and over and over again.
And I just got to say, this is what really struck me just now, is we talk sometimes about the time in the desert when we would see these orbs come out of nowhere, and they would brighten and then dim, and it was like a rotation. I don't know, it just struck me interesting.
Yeah, it was like they were going through portals, just like this, literally. We could see them, and then they would go, and then they pop up. It was just, yeah, I could see what you're talking about. After thousands and thousands of dreams, we awaken. After thousands and thousands of births, we are born. This, the end, is only beginning. That's Dr. Brian Weiss. He's done interesting research and into reincarnation and transmigration. And he's not the only one. So many people have had remembrances of past lives. So many people have gone to hypnotherapists and maybe wanted to kick smoking, and then all of a sudden something else pops up, and before you know it, it's realizations that you've had other lives.
What's curious though is the reason some of these lives might pop up when you're trying to quit smoking is because they're relevant, they're needed. This information is now coming in to help you go to another level. So everything's interconnected in weird ways.
It sure is. It sure is. And some people, from past experiences as well. This was a particular researcher that did some research on reincarnation, Dr. Tucker. And as you see here, his research yielded some interesting patterns within the cases of children claiming memories of a past life. Most children claiming memories of a past life are between the ages of 2 and 6. So, 2, when they could start actually verbalizing, right? And 6, when you're starting to get indoctrinated into the system to the point where, no, that imaginary friend's not there. No, you're just imagining this. No, you were never a fireman. No, you didn't die in an accident. Those are just dreams. Those are just, you saw a show or something. When society tells you that the things that you're experiencing aren't real, is at that age. So that tells a lot right there. The median age at the time of the previous person's death is 28. That's curious. 60% of children who claimed past life memories were male. 70% of the children claimed they died a violent or a natural death, traumatized. In those cases, just over 70% of the deceased individuals were male. Same ratio as the general population. 90% of the children say they were the same sex in a previous life as they are now. The median time between the claimed death and birth is 16 months. 20% of the children claim memories at the time between death and birth. I've shared with you guys some of my own experiences. My naturopath that helped me get through Lyme disease was from Ukraine, and yet she, because she was female, had shared with me that she had done past life regressions and saw clearly she was in World War II. And she was a German soldier in World War II. And she was killed by Russian soldiers. And she remembers being shot, falling down on train tracks and dying on the train tracks, looking up at the sky and seeing the soldiers walk by. And she was young and she was male. And so, that always stuck with me because, it's interesting to say the least. And I've had numerous past lives that I can remember bits and pieces from. And with Cindy and the guides, now the guides can't really, they're not supposed to spill the beans totally. There's things they're supposed to omit. But if you say something like, I've been naughty at times and said things like, well, I had this past life memory, I believe. And then they will kind of give you something that lets you know, yeah, you're right. Because you discovered it on your own. Yeah.
You're right. It's all about living your life. They're not going to come before you and tell you what you were. But if you are exploring your inner self and you have this information and you blurt it out, the guides can confirm.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my last life, I know I lived only 6 more years than I am at right now. And when I left really quickly. I think I was just done and needed a period of time to get ready for this particular incarnation, as that life was more about pleasure and enjoyment and truly exploring the depths of my soul. And this one has been more about work, so to speak, and doing this job, helping in the transition. Now, I know that I've fought against the system many times, and I know that the system in the darkest of the dark ages has taken me out. I've seen that, and I've seen the way that's happened, and I've kind of relived that. But it is curious because I can't remember a single past life where I was female, and yet I could remember at 6, 7. So yeah, that's curious to me too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we look at male, female differently than what it really is when we're dealing with energy. Energy, male and female, they're two separate energetic forces. And when they come here, they do different things. Like, I guess the best way for me to explain it is go back to Vedic astrology. What they believe is all the planets are male, and all the creations that are created upon that planet are female. It is the creative energy force, and the male is the potential. So we kind of break that down in human words for us to understand, and then all of a sudden things become male and female, but we're still dealing in energy.
Yes, we are. And I've shared with you guys too, maybe a few times, probably more than quite a few times. Like when my brother died, my first out-of-body experience was coming back from the funeral, and I was a little 5-year-old guy all dressed up in a suit and everything. I remember it being very somber, and I remember standing next to the kitchen table and just staring at the wall in the kitchen, and I was thinking, I'm never going to see my brother again. And then all of a sudden I was behind myself, looking down at myself, and there was a voice right next to me saying, you're not your body. And it turns out it was my brother that was saying that. He was just letting me know, you're not your body, so, he was basically saying he's not dead. He's going to be on the other side. He's going to be working with me through this lifetime. And he's going to be there the whole time. And as a kid, we had a family home that my aunts lived in. It was in a really bad side of one of the biggest cities in Connecticut. And it was in an area that one time was wonderful and beautiful, but in the time period that this was, it was, crime-ridden and violent, and we would always check on the car multiple times to make sure it was still there when we were visiting my aunts. My aunts had gun shots ringing out all the time. Actually, bullets hit the bedroom a couple of times, stray bullets. And, that house haunted me. But during the Depression, most of the family lived in that house. And so it was a big old house, and it could house, a lot of people, as there was 13, 14 of them living together in the Depression. And they did well, and the kids had a great upbringing, and they, viewed their life as being blessed because they had so many loved ones around them, because they pooled their resources. Yet the house haunted me, and I would feel that there was something in the house all the time. And it would haunt me in my dreams, even. Yeah, I could feel there was a presence moving around the house, disembodied presence. And it wasn't until much later in life, after deep, deep meditation, that I realized it was me, disembodied. And the fact that, again, not the body, and even in between lives, I was in the house checking out the going-ons of people that were family members to come. But then again, I've incarnated with my brother and my father multiple times. So this realization is just one type of realization that will hit us as we go deeper, and we start to realize we do have soul groups that we come in with time and time again. We can change positions, could be your son, and your son might be your grandfather next time around.
And I'm trying to think of ways for people to understand, like, when this information hits you, how do you know that is true? And the best way I can explain it is if you're given a test and you put the answers down on that test and you think you're right, but you're really not sure until you see that the answer was correct. And then it's like this flood of information comes over you, and you're able to ground in that information, and it's like there's no doubt. So it is, you really do have to get a handle on your emotions and your feelings, because those are the little posts in which we stay in between when we walk through this life. It's like, I know that this is part of me walking down this path, and you just know your baseline. So when you have more information coming from the outside in, you know what's going to be yours and what's going to be something else. It's a process.
Absolutely. So you can see that even when we take Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, now Hinduism is the root, ultimately, of Buddhism and Jainism, and yet there's agreement and disagreement between them, and different things are accentuated. And then again, in Buddhism, you could break it down into the different groupings of Buddhism, depending on which one you're adhering to. And Hinduism as well. I mean, Hinduism breaks down into so many different groupings. So even when we look at this, we can argue about this, in and of itself, as you could get into, the dualistic school of thought, and then the non-dualistic school of thought. And so, again, there's no one size fits all, but we can take some generalities. Like when you look to Buddhism here, consciousness is not permanent from life to life. To evolve from ignorance, once ignorance is released, rebirth does not occur. No divine judgment or reward. The soul is responsible for itself. That's something, that all three kind of adhere to. Again, it's all about karma, action, reaction. The soul is eternal, goes through many rebirths. Yeah, absolutely. A specific consciousness continues through each life. Over on the Hinduism and Jainism side, all actions have consequence. Karma is the root of birth and death. In the Jain, all of them recognize the practice of ahimsa, which is trying not to do harm. And the Jains will take it to what some people might call extreme, where they will wear masks over their face so they don't inhale bugs. They will avoid stepping on ants. I mean, I always avoid stepping on ants and bugs. I try to avoid and it's just something that's in me. And yet, if a fly lands on my nose, I've been known to swat them when they irritate you. So we're not quote unquote saints. We we all have our flaws, and this is the thing that you realize, what we might view as flaws, it's just simply us. Each one of us is unique and different. So when you look to Hinduism, to experience the benefits of one's karma, to satisfy one's earthly desires, to complete one's unfinished goals from another life, to fulfill a debt when one's soul is indebted to another, to suffer because of a curse on the soul, to shed base instincts. Again, there's different schools of thought within each of these branches. When you hear them talk about like being trapped in a reincarnation cycle, that's not really something that we've experienced. And again, and we're also talking, Cindy has the ability to communicate with many different beings on different planes of existence. And, again, I'll share my mother, when she first died, and she died January 2020, her initial impulse was to come back and do it all again pretty soon. And she was thinking about expanding and doing something totally different, like taking a life somewhere in Asia. She was not a world traveler in this past life. In fact, she did venture out a few times beyond New England and New Jersey, but only a few. She mostly stayed in Connecticut and New York and New Jersey most of her life. And so she was thinking about coming back soon in Asia and taking a life. But then after, I'd say it was just about 3 years, it was maybe around January of this year that she decided, nope, she's not going to incarnate again for a while. And so she ascended up into what we would call fifth density. And on fifth density, she's somebody that I wouldn't recognize as mom. She's much more powerful being, much more expansive energy. So it's interesting because that was just simply her choice. Was she perfect in life? No, none of us are. I think she was a very, what we would call, good person. I don't think she... Gosh, I can't ever think of a time when she did. Towards the end of her life, she got a little cranky at times, and that happens when we age and we get in pain constantly. We can have that tendency to get cranky, but before that point, I can't think of a time when she would knowingly really say nasty things or do nasty things. She was a very, very nice person, as was my father. I was really blessed with two sweet, gentle souls to be my parents.
Mm-hmm. And that is really good, when you're on a spiritual journey and you do have that backup from the parents. And so many children don't have that backup, and they have a lot of trauma stemming back from childhood. And it does help when you are on a spiritual journey to go back and start to unravel that trauma, to figure out your base. Like, who are you if you strip away the traumas and you strip away the other alternatives? Who are you really at your core? So it's definitely your journey, and it's whatever you have chosen for this lifetime to work on. And to have these realizations does take that quiet time, healing the traumas, to go within, to allow this information to come up and present itself to you. We really have to dig and get all the garbage and crap out of our life, because the garbage and the crap keeps us from remembering. The garbage and the crap keeps these realizations from coming to us. So, it's a process. You got to take out one little thing at a time, unwrap it, take a look at it, feel that emotion for what it is so you can release it. And that's kind of what we do when we're removing blocks. We remove this information. You still have to process the energy. You absolutely have to process the energy of the emotion, of the trauma, which isn't always clear and which isn't always easy to do. but it's so very rewarding to go through these things, and you just keep finding more and more freedom as you walk this journey and learn and heal.
So I guess what I want to get across is like this point over here, to satisfy one's earthly desires. Yeah, it's our desire. It's our desire. And it might be our desire to fulfill a debt for somebody else. You know, maybe a soul came in and cut their life short in order to have some familiarity with you, connect with you, but then they're gone. And they're gone prematurely, but they're not really gone. They're on the other side. You know, now you have somebody you know that is on the other side, helping and working with you, and that this will happen. And this is, you know, something that does happen relatively often. You know, again, it's our desires. If we have all the time in the world, because there is no time, ultimately, don't you think you're going to want to do something different? Don't you think you're going to be like, gosh, you know, pizza was so darn good. Cheesecake was so wonderful. Ice cream. Because we can create it in our minds, but it's sort of an illusion on the higher densities. Yet, what is more real on the higher densities is the realization of love and the unity.
Mm-hmm. That's there. And when you're here on this planet and you have these you create these desires that you want to do when you come here, higher self is not going to explain this to you. Why? Because this has to be something you desire deep in your soul. It's not for you to be told what you desire. It's for you to discover it in and of itself and allow that information to unfold in your lifetime.
So, you know, maybe something that we're locked into. We're locked into it just of our own free will and free choice. And, you know, that maybe makes things look a little bit different. When we look at just a single flower, we might think, how beautiful, how simple. And yet, you know, many souls, you know, maybe, I can only say many, I can't say all, but many may start out just as, you know, tending a flower. And that's your whole purpose for coming in, is first to be an elemental, or what we would call a nature spirit, an elemental being, taking care of a flower. And, you know, you may end up progressing to taking care of a tree. And, you know, again, think about a tree. All that it sees, if it lives 200, 300, 400 years, watches humans come, silly humans, and then they go, and it's still there. And so it is a lesson, you know, to the consciousness in one way that's very, very different. When we look at like the avatars of Vishnu, there have been many sages that pointed out this is an evolutionary path. As you know, one of the first ones is Matsya, which is, you know, a fish being. And then it goes to Kurma, which is a turtle being. And then it goes to a boar being, and then a lion, and then a dwarf, and then it goes on through different human incarnations. And it's kind of showing how the soul progresses through transmigration. Absolutely. When Arjuna sees Krishna, and Krishna reveals himself to be Vishnu, and all the different faces, all the different arms. When here's a clue: when we see a being with two arms, that's embodied. You know, it's an embodied soul. When we see these beings in the Hindu depictions that have many arms, some will have 4, some will have 6, some will have countless. This is again showing the many different faces that the soul will take throughout time.
Mm-hmm. And some have a very good understanding of that. And as we go through life and we come upon different challenges, when you are wanting to know past life, this information does come to you. Keep in mind that it's coming to you for the purpose of you needing this information to resolve something in this life. And we're really kept from that. in more of a silver age, golden age, we would know where we come from. We would know our lineage. We would know our past lives, and we would have these educations and these knowings, and we could walk through life, understanding who we are. But in this dark age, we still, not too many have an understanding of what they're made of, where they come from, and how this information can help us move forward in this life. And I think even a lot of the religious teachings don't even really bring that into being an option. They just kind of say, well, you're only having this one life, and then that's it, that's gone forever. When in reality, you are probably, if you're listening to this channel, you're probably a very ancient being with a lot of different aspects to you, a lot of different facets to you. And when you go through an awakening, all of these different aspects of you begin to wake up, because now things are waking up in order to help you resolve whatever you came here to do. So you are getting all this past life information. It's going to come in different forms. It's usually going to come in the form of what interests you. And there is no logical order for this information to come through. And in fact, it can be a very chaotic time in your life. It can be a time when you're just like, oh my gosh, where does this information come from? I want to study these 5 different things. I want to study them all at the same time and 10 minutes ago. So it's very chaotic in that sense. But we just very slowly start pulling these aspects of ourselves into the here and now and bringing things together. Slow but sure.
Yes, aspects of is one thing. And it's an illusion at the same time, but it's an illusion so we could have a unique experience. So it's a purposeful illusion. And ultimately, all the things that we see, even the dark control system upon the planet, in some ways, is just simply there for our own growth, ultimately, and also the growth of others. And yet we are ultimately one. That's the biggest reveal of all, is we are one unified, even though it might not look that way, field of consciousness.
Well, we did come here with the illusion that we're going to experience our own separate experience.
And when there is no time, you truly do have all the time in the world.
You sure do.
So hope this was interesting for you guys. Please do leave your comments. We look forward to them. Much love, God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.